All right. This talk is Bugzilla for the Perl Conference 2016. Bugzilla, if you didn't know, was written in 1998 as a Tcl application, and in about 2000 it was actually rewritten in Perl because that was a more popular language than Tcl. Depending on how you count it, it's either 16 or 18 years old. And myself, I am Dylan. I work for Mozilla. I work on Mozilla's fork of Bugzilla, but I am also the assistant project leader for the open source project, and that's what I come here to speak about today. I am not talking about what I do for work, because what I do for work is a different fork. Now, I may want to take things that I do for work and put them in the project that everyone uses, but that is not what today is about. Today is 100% about the project, and any stupid thing I say is me being stupid and does not reflect on my employer or their views. In Bugzilla's history, it's been characterized by what I would call 3 eras, or maybe 4 eras if you count the bit that it was written in Tcl. The first era was largely Perl CGI scripts and CGI PL, and that I don't really wish to speak any further about that. In about 2000, I think in about 2005, there were 2 very, very super contributors named Max Alexander Kanat and Frederick Bucklin. I'm probably pronouncing either of those wrongly. And between them, they represent something like 4,000 commits, and I don't know, maybe a huge percentage of the code. Because of them, Bugzilla is kind of object-oriented now. There's lots of code that's relatively recent, although it doesn't necessarily make use of modern CPAN modules, and so on. And that was that era. We are now in a 3rd era of Bugzilla, starting in about 2013, which maybe 2012 to be fair, in which Bugzilla grows to be maybe something that's more like a normal Perl application. I'm going to do this again, advise you in very confusing British Sign Language that what I'm talking about, although it may relate to the stuff that I do for work, I care about Bugzilla because it is an open source project, and I'm not soliciting help on the stuff that I get paid to do, but on stuff that I would like to see in the project so that it is a good Perl citizen and so forth. So just as additional adverse camber. This was supposed to be a picture of contribution history over Bugzilla's history, which highlights what I've just talked about, but apparently it is not and is empty, but you can visualize it in your mind. A huge spree of activity from 2005 to about 2011, and then kind of tapering off, and then beginning to pick up again, I would say around 2014 as we started getting a little active. So, which is not to say we are the most active project, but we are definitely, the few of us that are working on this are working very hard. Bugzilla 5 was released last year after a very long delay. This was the first release where I have some tangential involvement, although I have really very little. It was released in 2015, about April, I think, but I could be wrong about that. We added a REST-like API, comment tagging, memcache support. Believe it or not, we've actually had a bug for memcache support in 2004, but it was not implemented until 2013, and then you see when it was released. Oh yeah, we also migrated from Git to BCR. Or no, migrated to Git from BCR, and I wrote that grammar intentionally to be confusing. The Bugzilla 5 REST API is also blank. The Bugzilla 5 REST API has seen a lot of adoption. GitHub currently, if you configure a GitHub repository to talk to Bugzilla, it's still going to be using XML-RPC. I have some patches for the Ruby code that does the REST, but I haven't submitted them. But the REST API has been used by at least aha.io and at least a couple of other bug trackers for integration work. I was quite surprised to see this. The REST API makes use of can you make use of API keys, which is also new in the 2015 release. Our documentation was rewritten for about the 3rd or 4th time in our history, this time in Read the Docs restructured text format, and is available on Read the Docs. And we've seen slightly more contributions to the documentation since it's now in yet another format. Thankfully, our translator for the French language, Cedric, has also updated the documentation, and I have promised Cedric that we will not be changing the format again, because every time we change the format, he has to retranslate everything instead of just what's different. And he's very courageous for keeping up with that. But I also would like to tell you what is going on in the next release of Bugzilla, which I hope will be over the summer. This sort of depends on how much free time the people working on it have. But we have a new default theme. We have support for Plaque. We have documentation that tells people, because we have support for Plaque, but our users may not know what that means, because our users are not necessarily Perl people. But that means they can run it as fast CGI and using proxies and so on, and they can get away from Apache and mod Perl. We also now support the Perl toolchain, and what I mean by that is we have a makefile.pl. We can be installed with cpan-m. It's like almost a normal cpan distribution, although I don't think we can be on cpan just yet. That will have to wait. But we're kind of getting like a normal Perl application. We also feature auth delegation, which is a funny way of saying we have something like OAuth. And OAuth we should have implemented, but auth delegation is fairly good. So if you have an application that wants to talk to Bugzilla, you can, or use Bugzilla as an authentication mechanism, you can log into Bugzilla, get an API key sent to your application, and then your application can make API requests to Bugzilla and get data from it. We also have much faster REST. Before our REST in Bugzilla that's current, like the 5.0 release including, if you're using REST, REST is translated first to JSON RPC, and then the JSON RPC kind of touches the layer that talks to XML RPC, so it's built like an onion, and it's not very slow, but it's very slow. And switching to having direct calls and also not trying to cast Perl values, Perl scalars, which is something that we previously were doing, and we end up with maybe 10% performance improvement. And we got Markdown support as a result of Google Summer of Code 2013. So once again, that's coming out this year, a bit 3 years late, but there were lots of bugs. Before I show you, before we talk about it even further afield, I would like to just kind of, I think I can highlight some of the changes in the UI, although the UI hasn't changed that much. It's a little bit prettier. So this is the Bugzilla that you are probably familiar with. This is the classic theme, and it's pretty ugly. And stylistically, we haven't really changed anything, but we changed the colors at one point. So if you have a newer Bugzilla install, it might look like that, which is also still pretty not nice. I actually can't. This is Emacs, and I can't zoom in the images. But if you go to most Bugzilla sites, they will look like that. Like I think if you go to the GCC Bugzilla, it will look like that. This is what BMO looks like, and this is called Sandstone. BMO is bugzilla.mozilla.org, and that's what I actually work on during the day. And it's quite nice. Those icons were redesigned by, I can't remember the name, but I should have credits the next time I give this talk. All that is going to be upstreamed in 6.0. It is a blocker bug. A colleague of mine, Fish, is working on that. Ryan Wilson, who works for one of the other Bugzilla sites. So he's not actually a coworker, he's a project coworker. And he's been really hard at work working on this. It's in for review now, and it's one of the last blockers for the 6.0 release. It's not great, but it's a little bit less painful on the eyes. So let's talk about the features that I've alluded in a little tiny bit more detail. Our long CGI nightmare is beginning to end. With the coming release, we have the support for Plaque, and we have documentation so that people will start using it. And then the next release, which will be 6.2, we are going to be deprecating things, and it's because of Plaque that we can do that. We have a mostly normal makefile PL. As a side effect of the fact that we still have to run under CGI, we have to edit all of the CGIs so that their path is local. This is because we also run under taint mode, and there's a number of reasons for this, but I know generally using lib for a specific directory is bad, but we have to do that. But the thing is, we look in local, which means we're basically carton compatible, even though before I was in charge of Bugzilla, the decision was that we would not support carton. So I did not support carton. I just merely look where carton will put things. There's the API keys. And for some reason it's not OAuth. Faster REST. 2004. Okay, so the new into 6.2, we're going to have a new show bug UI, which a colleague of mine, an actual coworker of mine, Byron Jones. Oh my God, he's going to hate me for that. Byron Jones wrote, and this new UI is faster because it loads less stuff right up off the front, and it looks a lot more organized. And I think that you will see in a minute how well that is. The CGI deprecation will continue. CGI will be deprecated in 6.2. If you are a CGI using site, we're going to kindly ask you to please use anything else or stay on the old version forever. We're going to be using Moo as a performance enhancement because Moo's methods accessor generation is faster as long as class access accessor is installed, and it will allow us to remove a huge percentage of the code, which everyone here is probably aware of, but previously was a contentious issue around Bugzilla development. We're also going to have an Elasticsearch powered search thing, which I have been working on during the day for BMO, and is really, really fast. And we'll get to if there's time, I'll have some examples of that. So there's the new experimental UI. This is a traditional, and I'm sorry again for the image sizes. This is a traditional Bugzilla show bug page. This is the one on BMO, so some fields may be different depending on the site. Some fields may be different depending on the site that you're using, but it's pretty much this splatter of things has been the case since the 1990s or early 2000s. It now looks a little bit more organized like this with sections. It's more interactive than you can see here. Each of those sections are collapsible, and different people can have different views of what's default shown. So if a person is triaging bugs, eventually they'll be able to have their own triage bug view, and so on. Once again, it's modal, so that there's an edit mode. When you edit things, you get sufficiently more clutter, but at least in the common case of looking at a bug, it is easier, and most people spend their time reading bugs than writing them, at least hopefully. Now, why am I here talking about Bugzilla? Why do I care? It's my job to care about my Bugzilla, our project that I work on, but I have started to care over the last 6 months, or maybe the last year, about the actual project, because it is very widely used in the open source community. There are large sites that have their own developers that work on Bugzilla, like Mozilla does. Red Hat has developers that work on it. But there are other open source communities, open source sites that do not have resources to pay someone to work on Bugzilla. There's LibreOffice, there's the Free Desktop, freedesktop.org, there's the GNOME Bugzilla, there's the GCC Bugzilla, which GCC Bugzilla actually has Frederick, and Frederick also maintains many other Bugzilla sites, and that is a valuable resource. But it would be nice if there were more Perl people helping with Bugzilla, because there are so many projects that this might be their only exposure to Perl, and it would be nice if it was a nicer Perl. So, getting on to the search, which there are not slides for. So, search. Back in 2005, search was drastically, well, from 2005 to 2012, search was drastically rewritten with objects. And because of the structure of search, we can take and do things with it. So currently we generate some really inefficient SQL. Bugzilla searches, if you are very specific, will generate very specific SQL, which will hit the right indexes, and you'll get results very fast. But if you have a very large Bugzilla site and you want to search all of the comments for the word, for instance, for the word Batman, then that will take 45 seconds over like 1 million bugs. With Elasticsearch, we were able to get that time down to 0.045 seconds, is essentially instant. And it is updated the indexer is fast enough running on pretty slow hardware to run at every 20 seconds, giving you a guaranteed 20 seconds of freshness. Doing this has not been easy, and coding this is something I have done for my Bugzilla, and is an example of something that someone could take and use in the upstream project, or help me put in the upstream project. And there are some other things that I specifically could use some help for, such as testing on Windows, testing against Oracle. I would also help, like if someone would care to try rewriting many of our templates to not use blocks, we could use text xlate, which would make things faster. And this last one is actually a blocker for the release of 6.0. We have to kill YUI2. So that's the JavaScript framework YUI2 is used in Bugzilla, and it has to be removed for the 6.0 release. We've determined that to be a blocker. I'm going to be doing that, and it's a lot of fun to go through and figure out how to rewrite something using either plain JavaScript or jQuery. So plain JavaScript is preferred. Those are some of the areas. There are other areas that Perl experts could really make a huge impact on. Performance of some operations is really slow for silly reasons, such as using grep in scalar context over, say, several thousand objects ends up being slow. Replacing that with any is a good performance improvement, or realizing that they're sorted in some cases and using a binary search can result in huge gains. And there's a lot of places in the code where this needs to be done and tested. There's also memory leaks because the reference counting wasn't taken into account, so bugs can refer to other bugs. And when that happens and they're loaded into memory, they live forever. So there are lots of areas that people that know that do Perl can get involved in. And was there a demo? How am I doing on time?
7 minutes.
7 minutes, excellent. So I'm going to do the failure of all talks and do a live demo. This is the super fast search, which is indexing most fields, and my VM is not running, which is awesome. If my VM were running, you would be seeing a result, but I had to restart for the projector in the test room to work, so. Oh well, no worries. You can take my word on the speed. I'll actually go back to Emacs. So I have a number of bugs. If anyone here specifically wishes to help, then please get with me. I have the mentor on all of these bugs, which are listed under the Bugzilla product on bugzilla.mozilla.org. And many of them won't take a lot of time. It really just takes effort and a slight amount of poking to get things done. We are also migrating to GitHub, and I will start accepting pull requests, although, of course, it will be silly, and we will not accept issues on GitHub because we're a bug tracker. If anyone would like to help me with the organization, I need to sit down and go over each of our extensions. There are somewhere under 100 extensions that all have to have issues turned off on. And that really amounts to sitting there and clicking a button. Unless anyone has a script to go and take an organization's projects and turn off issues on all of them, in which case, that would be super spiffy.
There's the GitHub API. Pretty easy to use.
Does it have the ability to do admin stuff?
I think so.
So this is search. I'm logged in. There's about 1 million bugs in here, and I am literally going to search them for the word Batman and all comments. For comments, there's far more than 1 million comments. I don't have numbers on that. There's a lot of comments. That was really fast, wasn't it? But everyone knows Elasticsearch is fast. But wouldn't it be nice if, say, you go to some random open source project that's using Bugzilla and their search was fast? And wouldn't it be nice to have an excuse to work on Elasticsearch in a non-threatening environment that doesn't have to do with your job? You should come and help. This patch that needs to be landed upstream, and I don't have the time to do it. If you want to see the horrible SQL that it generates without that, I will show you that now. This actually may not finish in the time that I have left to speak. Let's see. Oh, also, this is using multi-part HTTP. If someone would like to help me remove this, I'm actually working on a patch set for that, but it's really complicated because no one ever assumed that they would use anything other than multi-part HTTP. So you have to actually serialize the search object and then you save it somewhere and then resume it, because parts of the search object are needed for displaying and parts of it are needed for executing the query. There you go. That took 21 seconds, which is not all that bad for searching everything. In a production environment, this will take a lot longer if there are anyone else using the system, even if you have multiple DB slaves.
Elasticsearch and a relational database backend?
Yep, and it's kept in sync about if a bug changes, it's about 20 seconds latency. Which is why there's a feature for turning it off, and there's actually going to be a button to hit the database directly for really hardcore engineers, but most of the time I think that's a fine trade-off. It also will...
Generalizing that component that indexes against a relational database?
Yeah, so Bugzilla has, not exactly, Bugzilla has its own ORM, for better or worse, and in its ORM I've added roles that describe how you turn an object from the Bugzilla database into an Elasticsearch index document. And so that part's adding new fields to a bug or custom fields or so on is supported to index. Right now I'm not even indexing everything. I'm just indexing the common elements from 4,000 searches. So if I search for the reporter, it's not going to hit Elasticsearch. It's going to fall back into a database search. But it's not that difficult to add that. We do have a problem with timeouts. With timing out, we may time out the indexer if someone changes their name and they are the assignee of, like, say, 1 million bugs. But I think the edge cases are sufficiently slim to worry about, especially for Bugzilla projects that are not huge. Thank you very much. If there's any other questions?
What do you use to batch the reindexes?
To batch them, I just build
What actually triggers the reindexing of it back to it?
Oh, it runs in a loop and checks for changes to the tables in question. So it's not time-based. We're not doing any marking and seeing if things are dirty. It's merely what's changed since then. And everything that's changed since then gets reindexed. Yes?
How do we get your code?
It's on GitHub, Bugzilla/Bugzilla. We are officially on GitHub as our official repository now. It may not say that, but that's official. The git.mozilla.org is no longer hosting us. Any others? Thank you very much.